Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So welcome for joining us today. This is the ASPIRE55 Webinar Talkshow this week, looking at how will cars control articular rotations help to improve your mobility and balance. So we bring you this series with interviews with fellow Singaporeans who are passionate and active in ideas that will change the future of how we age. And this week, we get to hear from Samuel Oliver Low, Rehab and Performance Trainer, and a regular senior trainer at the ASPIRE55 Clubhouses. Sam is young, dynamic, and aims to change the way we think about rehabilitation. He'll share with us his passion for cars and how it helps with prehab and rehab, improving our mobility and balance. So join us in this hour as we find out more about how we can better prepare ourselves for successful aging with the right exercises and why he is so passionate about training older people. So Sam here with us in the studio today is an ACE certified personal trainer and certified musculoskeletal massage therapist. He's been exposed to a wide range of clients from young to old. He is attached to a physio clinic where he is practicing as a sports therapist and movement coach. Many of his training styles incorporate functional neurology application, such as multisensory approaches, as well as ensuring that breathing is at the top of the hierarchy. The only thing we as humans do daily is to breathe. Improve our respiration first, and everything else will fall into place. He always looks to further develop his skills by attending overseas programs, like the latest one he's attended in Seoul, Korea, and I believe Australia as well. He speaks English and Mandarin. So today, let's do this talk show all about Sam and find out everything we want to learn. So welcome, join us today, Sam. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Janice, for inviting.
Can we start off by you sharing with your audience about why you're so passionate about fitness?
All right. So basically, when I was much younger, I was actually quite active in sports. So I think, if I remember correctly, it was many years ago, I started doing track and field when I was in secondary school. And then along the way, when I went to poly, I did canoeing sport, sprint canoeing. So all along the line of my life, I was actually quite active in sports. What actually drove me to somewhere where I am today is actually because of many episodes of different injuries actually that led me to this where I'm currently at as my profession, as more towards rehab and also performance. But I take more in consideration into more rehab stuff. I prefer to do that a lot more because I actually experienced the whole journey myself. So I was actually down with, let's put it too simply, that 2 injuries that actually took me out of training for quite a long period of time. And I actually seen more than 10 therapies, but they can't really get anything sorted out. So that's where my journey ended up to become where I am today here, and so passionate about fitness and rehab as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. What kind of injuries did you have? What happened to you specifically? What kind of injuries? Because sometimes many of us have things like sprained ankles or we hurt our shoulders. What were the injuries that really turn you towards doing what you're doing today?
So basically, the injuries is more towards my shoulder and my back. Okay, but the thing is that very funny is that when I went to the hospital to get diagnosis and stuff like that, I remember correctly, I think I saw 3 sports doctors. They told me that, hey, you have nothing wrong with you. A range of motion test, there's no pain. But based on the results, they say it's okay. But based on my internal self, I feel that something's really off. Like there's a lot of sound clicking. And I feel like, for example, it feels very restricted and I don't have the correct amount of range that I should have when I do my sports or when I do my training, for example. Yeah, so that's where it started me, and I'm thinking that, hey, how come the healthcare industry here, or the industry that rehabilitation, right, is not quite right, in the sense whereby they only look at very superficial diagnosis, but they don't really look deeper into how the person actually feels. Many times we can actually see results from the scans, but the scan actually doesn't really depict on how the person is actually feeling. There's certain studies that they say that some people went to take an X-ray for a back pain, but actually the cause of the back pain was more of an emotional stressor that created the back pain for them. But they found out that there's some degenerative disc, but it's not involved with the pain. So I think there's a lot more to be done and to be looked at when we're doing rehabilitation. And it's not just the results and the diagnosis, but maybe how actually the person feels.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories where people get injured, they go to a specialist sometimes, and they are told that you have to do an operation. What's your take on operating on the joints and bones, and what have you experienced with your clients so far?
Okay, so I remember having one client quite a while back ago where she had a shoulder issue, and if I remember correctly, the person didn't want to actually touch her to do any manipulation or any therapy on her, but suggested that she should go for surgery. Okay, so I seen that client, and if I remember correctly, we did some work with her, some rotational work, some breathing work, and after a few weeks, she felt much better, and she regained about 90% of her range of motion back. Yeah, and
Wow.
and the discovered that she was suffering from wasn't there anymore. Yeah, so I think that when we talk about surgeries and stuff, right, I'm not really good into that, in the sense that I'm not really certified to talk about surgeries, but I think that most of the time, based on the models of the industry of insurance and stuff like that, the doctors push them to go to surgery because of maybe money reason. They can get a faster way out. But little they don't know that when they have the surgery, it's actually sometimes have more complications, and the patient might not even want to move the shoulder anymore because they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think there's more to be done that you can do before you actually opt for a surgery. Even though your doctor asks, I think you should opt for a second opinion.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of questions would you advise us to ask the doctors whenever we're told like you have to get a surgery? What are the few more questions we can ask possibly in that appointment? When you go into a doctor's office and they say, okay, no, you have to operate on this. But I'm sure we can ask a couple more questions before we get to that stage. What kind of advice would you give for older people in terms of trying to ask some useful questions for them?
So if the first thing is that, okay, so the first thing that if you want to consider having surgery is whether the doctor asks you whether you have insurance. So when doctor asks you have insurance, first thing they really put you on a platter already. You go for surgery already. The other things that if the scenario that it comes to you and first thing they ask you you have insurance and they ask you to go for surgery, it's quite hard for you to ask more questions per se, because if say for example an elderly person that goes to the doctor, he wouldn't or she wouldn't know what to actually look out for. They're not very sure. And the best thing is that getting the results or getting whatever they have told you, I think you should bring it out to someone else that is specialized in that area, that maybe if you maybe fall into more of a private practice would be better as well. Yeah, or someone that doesn't base their model a bit around insurance. I think there's a good chance that they will prescribe you something else to do. Yeah.
I think I mean, there's of course different views on it, especially from the medical faculties. So yes, I think that's quite a good idea that we can have, like, at least consult two specialists if you're not really sure if you really want that surgery, and also explore the possibility for some injuries that you can improve your range of motion and consider, do you really need that surgery or not, and without injury, of course. Yeah. So thanks Sam for that little bit of sharing. Right now let's get to know a bit more about how you've come into the elderly sector through ASPIRE55. I believe you've been with ASPIRE55 for about 3 years now. What was your earliest story of joining, and what's been your experience?
So far the experience has been evolving, and it's always evolving to be better. I still remember the first time when I joined was 3+ years ago. I think it was Norman or YC that looked me up. Then I had the interview with YC. I was skeptical at first, to be frank, to be honest. But as I went to see the trial session or something like that at the very first Commonwealth outlet, it opened my eyes to actually see that, wow, you actually can do a lot more, or you can bring together more elderly folks together to have a community, to exercise together, and also to have a time to have fun, and also a lot of laughter. So because I always think of retirement village as very sad, very sian, and very depressing kind of state where elderly folks just sit around, play whatever they have around with them, or maybe just do simple exercises, but not much interaction. But based on whatever I see in ASPIRE55, it's really 360-degree different, where people actually are very happy in the sense they come to exercise, they come to talk together, and to have a lot of potlucks. Yeah.
Well, interesting that you mentioned potlucks. I mean, people really don't associate exercise and potlucks in that same sentence. What's your view of eat the view of food in general? You know, like people think that if I want a body like Sam's, I should be on a extreme diet or fast. You know, what's your advice for many of the elders out there who are watching this?
For keeping fit, is that what you meant?
For the influence of food on keeping fit. What should we not eat anything, all the stuff that we love? Should we just eat very, very little? What's your advice, or what's your own experience?
So everything in moderation is what is my practice or my principle. You can eat to enjoy, definitely, but you have to also watch the outcome measures. For example, like if you're going to indulge the whole day eating your favorite food, there will be an outcome of, say, extra weight gain, or you might feel a little bit sluggish. So I would just piece in differently, in the sense that we can enjoy and indulge at different times, but we also sort of like work hard to burn off certain calories, or watch what we eat the rest of the day. So of course we can indulge, but again, everything in moderation. So for example, when we have potluck, it's not every day, it's not every week, it's every occasion that we have, and we indulge and eat together and chat together and enjoy together. Mm-hmm.
So, with COVID-19 and everyone staying at home, there's been a lot of pictures on social media about what everyone is doing, eating, baking. What have you been doing for COVID-19? What have you been up to?
So the most of my time, I actually been doing online courses based from overseas, and also the courses I'm doing is actually to improve respiration, also to improve my skills into manual therapy as well. Yeah, and also I also do have some times where I cook a little bit extra for my family, experiment new dishes, experiment new exercises as well, so that when everything gets back to a phase 2, we can apply this all into Aspire side and also into my clients as well.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about what are you cooking? Like, what do you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Tell us what your daily diet looks like.
So I don't really base my diet on 3 meals, or in say breakfast, lunch, dinner anymore. I just categorize it according to meal 1, meal 2, or meal 3. That will make it easier, because everyone have a different opinion on their diet and their timings to eat. But people don't know that actually I love to do IF, or intermittent fasting, so that I try to prolong the fasting period, so that I hit into around 2 o'clock where I start to have my first meal. Then onwards, I have my second and third meal. Yeah, so I try to practice longer fasting through the night, so that the body actually burns up more of the fat, and then we can get to stay healthier and leaner, because there's a study and a relationship between fasting longer and longer lifespan as well. Yeah.
But of course, fasting's not for everybody, and because we have many elderly listening today, I would suggest, if you are not sure, you should always check in with your doctors before you attempt to try any form of new diet or new regimens. You're at home a lot now. So what's it like being at home more and seeing your family more? Tell us about your parents or your grandparents.
So being home more, yes, I get to spend with parents more. For my grandparents, we're not staying together, so it's a bit tough. But I managed to see my granddad about I think last week, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and it was quite good, because he has to stay back in Singapore because he actually works in China. So it's good that we can see him here in Singapore as well. Yeah. So, and also we have a little bit more time to watch TV together at times, and we spend a little bit more time eating together as well at home. Yeah. My parents.
What does granddad do in China? What does he work as?
He works as the overseas manager in one of the the X oil that we smell, the X oil brand. So he works there for his cousin, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, okay, yes, we're quite familiar with that X brand oil. I think
Correct.
we see that in many families and many elders use it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you're growing up, what's your relationship like with granddad?
Not very close because he is actually hardly in Singapore, only coming back during the holidays, for example, Chinese New Year or Labor Day, when China has a long holiday. Yeah, usually those period of times only. And when we get to see him, he's a little bit strict lah, so a bit hard to like talk a lot of stuff with him sometimes. But he jokes around when we all together, we talk a lot of fun, and he always like to share his experience and his stories. Like I think in the past days, he was a scout boy, and he went for hunting trips and stuff like that. And I remember correctly, the one funny thing is that he's supposed to shoot something, but he realized he shot someone's cow by accident. Oh, so it was quite funny when that. He's supposed to shoot. I don't know what thing, it was an animal or something, but he shot someone's cow instead.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that was very long ago.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And given that you're in the fitness industry, are your parents gym bunnies? Are they very active and they exercise a lot?
No, actually not. Actually, it's the opposite. So I'm trying to get them to do more. At first, my dad is okay for some exercise, but my mom is more resistant to them because she doesn't like to sweat. She feels that the weather is so hot already, so by doing ball movement actually is more uncomfortable for her. Yeah. So but along the way, she actually understood and appreciate that what I'm trying to do for her is actually to help her to move better, age stronger, and move and feel better overall.
And what's your mom's fitness level like? And is it similar to many of the members' health status that you see at ASPIRE55? Like they're pretty fit, or they are moderate. What's your mom's fitness level like? And what's your experience been incorporating exercises for her? Is it difficult to convince her to start exercising at the beginning?
Okay, so her fitness level, I would say, is more towards a very new member that joins ASPIRE55. So most of the member at ASPIRE55 is way fitter than my mom, although they are much older. So she has to start already. But in the sense that it's a little bit tough to get her to exercise. Like I mentioned, she doesn't like to sweat. So I have to find exercise that minimize as much as movement as possible that can trick her into doing something as well without breaking so much sweat as well. So I give her more scaled down exercise. As long as she moves, she trains, she strengthens the muscle. I think that's a good way to work with her first, and she's appreciating at the same time.
So what's your advice for people whose parents don't really want to exercise? I mean, I'm sure you have friends who come to you and say like, Sam, my mom and dad don't want to exercise. What can I do? What's your advice for them to convince their parents to exercise?
So the first thing is that maybe not trying to push them towards exercise first, but maybe try to rationalize with them and give a logical understanding of maybe why is exercise so important, or maybe the function of movement, for example, or how the body moves. Say when they want to reach to grab something and they feel that they can't really reach up so well anymore, that's a good way to work with them first, in showing them that by strengthening certain things, when you move overhead, you actually can retain the function of your joint to reach above and grab something. And then this is how you can actually progress towards them to get them to go to an exercise class, or maybe just showing them simple moves that they can do to actually sort of strengthen. Like for example, when I work with her mom, I just asked her to sit on a lower chair and just stand up about 5 to 10 times. She felt what she needs to feel, like she felt her legs working. She felt that she feels a little bit stronger in her foot. I think that's a very, very good way to start off first.
That's great. You talk a lot about range of motions, and I think that leads us into the topic about what is CARS. Can you explain to us what exactly is CARS and how does it improve our mobility and balance?
Sure. Okay. So before we actually dive deeply into CARS, right? When we move as humans, we are moving based on whatever range we have from our joints. Okay. So we have joints: shoulder joint, hip joint. We're just going to use the two classic one, shoulder joint and hip joint. We know that it's like a ball and socket joint. So imagine there's something stuck in between the joint. Do you think that you will be able to access certain range? Probably not. Okay, so this is it's a very good example if like someone is in a cast for very long. When they take off the cast, you will see that they have a very hard time bringing their hands in the right direction of movement, overhead to the side, but they'll be okay to do this action in this internal movement here because they're strapped in this position here. So you can see that the tissue or whatever is not is modeled towards the position that it is in for the extended period of time. So if you don't have available range throughout, you probably wouldn't be able to express that range that you had when you were much younger, for example. So the CARS term is actually meaning that it's actually called controlled articular rotations. So I'll simplify it. It's basically very active movement, and it's a very rotational based movement that try to emulate creating the space of the joint wider and wider and wider. So we always want to be able to reach over our head easily, and we always want to reach to the side, to the back, whatever not, but we always want to express the range as much as possible and keep it as time goes by. Yeah, so that's basically what CARS about. So when we talk about CARS, you can use it for yourself as like an assessment. Like for example, if I'm trying to rotate up, how much can I have today? And maybe down the road, you've been doing some exercise, do you see that the range increased or the range actually maintained about the same? So you can actually know whether there's changes along the line in the joint that will depict how well your CARS is actually. And then you can use CARS training to actually open the joint up or increase the range of motion that we want. So we always look at a circle or rotational axis. We always want to rotate wider than my fist, always trying to rotate wider than my fist. So a lot of the members in ASPIRE55 have done it, I think. And then I think we can definitely share a little bit more with the audience as well.
Yeah. So, you explain, like if you want to know how much range of motion you have, one of them that you can try at home is stretching up. So how far can you stretch up? And what are the other ways that you can try out at home to check your range of motion? What can we do later in the afternoon after this talk to check how good our range of motion is?
So one being said, by trying to reach up, you can try to also do rotation instead. So we know ball and socket joint, we can rotate inside. You can sort of like put your hand to the side and then you just feel whatever range you have when you rotate. So there'll be some of us that will, when we do this exercise later, if we're going to demo it later, you'll feel that nothing is moving. So you know that something is not moving correctly in the joint, or for example, the range of motion you have is not there. You don't have enough. So you won't feel anything moving. Okay. But if you feel that there's a lot of, maybe there's some sound, or you feel that some sliding action in the joint, in this joint space when you're rotating, that's probably quite, I would say, quite all right feeling that you should have enough range of motion that you can access for maybe daily movement, for example. Because when we reach overhead,
when we hear a crack? When we hear like, our bones cracking, if we do that range of motion, does it mean we should stop? Is that a scary sign?
No, actually not. Unless it's associated with pain, then you should stop because there could be some compression. But even for myself, even for a lot of majority of us, there's some crepitus sound, very light tendon rubbing sound. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, that's normal for us to have that.
So can you tell us which of our body parts we can do this range of motions? Like, is it just our shoulders, or is it, what are the full range across our body that we can do these exercises?
So if we know that the body is actually made out of different joints, we actually can use it everywhere throughout the body. But the main majority one that will benefit most of us will be usually the neck, the shoulders, and the hips, for example. I would just list it as the simple three to get us moving well and to move a little bit more without so much of the discomfort, especially if you stay in a desk position for so long, or if when you wake up in the morning, wow, so sore, so tight and something like that. This will help to actually to relieve or reduce that sensation you're feeling by opening up joint spaces.
So can you share with us what can we do tomorrow morning when we first wake up? What do you do when you wake up? Like, what kind of CARS do you normally do or start your day?
So every morning I will I actually do it for the past 2 years already. Every day I will actually spend about 15 minutes either to breathe, or I also start with some rotational exercises just to open up my available range of motion. So like when I sort of like want to turn my head to the left, I have enough range to turn without pulling anything. So some instances that people sleep when they wake up, then they suddenly turn the neck, they feel, wow, something just snapped or something just pulled themselves, and they feel very uncomfortable in the neck. So I try to do this every time. Even throughout the day, I also do a little bit when I work on the desk for quite a period of time. I'll try to do that to mobilize and get the mobility in the neck. So the two things that we're going to show later is the neck range of motion. So we're going to do neck rotation. So typically it's called neck casts. And then the next one that most people that they feel that it's going to benefit them a lot is going to be the shoulder cast as well. So these two will be the one that I usually prioritize when I start my day, when I wake up.
Just one more thing, because we know that there's also quite a number of people, not just older people, maybe younger ones as well. They wake up in the morning and their legs feel sore after sleeping the whole night. Are there casts to help with such situations?
Yeah, so definitely. So depending on the area they feel sore, let's use the example of the hips, for example. So around the groin hip area. So those will be good to use more for a hip cast. So there's a hip rotation, like the shoulder rotation. We're going to use it for the hip joint as well. So it's the same principle, but just that it might be a little bit more tiring because you're going to use more musculature to actually bring the legs up. So you might feel a little bit more tired, but that's fine. But the whole principle behind cast is cast equals movement as well. So any movement will try to is sort of like, you can call it anti-inflammatory as well. So any movement you do, you're going to push lymphatic drain. You're going to push the lymphatic out. You're going to drain certain waste products out from the joint or from the tissue. So these movements will actually help to push them out and to replenish back with new fluids and nutrition to the joint or the areas that's intended to, you're trying to work again, to work for it. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we look forward to the demonstration later, and maybe you can show us a little bit about the hip cast as well, and see how we can try it out. Yes. Yeah. You know, with cast, it sounds like a very interesting concept. Why don't we hear about it more? I mean, we've heard about it through what you've been explaining to us, but we've never really heard it out there in our experiences with sports and exercise. In fact, the first time I heard about it was through you.
I think the concept is already in the areas that you should be seeing in the fitness industry and stuff like that, but maybe not so in depth and not so scientifically researched by because this is actually more from, if I'm not wrong, the founder was from Canada. So he started this whole system of CARS, functional range release, functional range conditioning. So it's maybe more widespread towards US, Europe side, but not so much in Asia. There's more and more in Asia, but more towards, I would say, the fitness side. Not so much into the elderly fitness side, but more towards the younger fitness side in a sense. Yeah, so that's why you don't see so much of it. And also, it's not very well used, I would say, towards the elderly side as well. I think that's why I'm trying to bring it in, where they can actually also benefit from this sort of exercise as well.
Great. And, you know, maybe we can now invite Sam to do a demonstration for us on some of the car exercises from your neck to shoulder to the hips. And then we'll come back and we'll talk to Sam more about breathing, because I know that's another area that he's very passionate about that will impact the way we exercise.
Okay, so I'll just show you where I'm at right now. We're going to do the neck one first. Okay, let me just
remove the virtual screen. Yep.
Okay. Okay, cool. So the neck has many ability for us. There's a wide range of ability that we have. We can rotate to left, we rotate right, look up, look down, but many of us don't really explore the full potential of the neck range of motion. We only spend maybe looking in front and down and up. We don't spend so much time turning left and right. We might, when we turn left or right, we might actually be turning with our body instead rather than the neck per se, because it's quite stiff in there. So ways that we can actually improve that is to actually draw circles with our chin and our eyes. Okay, so use the eyes and chin as your two indicating pencil to like draw big circles. And when we rotate, we always want to try to rotate wider than the fist, in the sense that I want to try to rotate wider than this circle that I have here in my fist. Okay, so that's the whole concept. But many of us, when we do this drill, we tend to just rotate whatever we have and we just stay in that circle. We always want to try to rotate wider than the circle as much as possible. So this will give us wider range of motion here. So if you look through, I'm going to demo it right now. I'm going to start by drawing my chin towards my chest or towards my chest bone. And this will be the starting position. Usually I will cue most people to get into. From here, I'll just imagine the chin and the nose and the eyes is the pencil. I'll be turning to my left. As I do that, I'll try to scrape the chin down to my clavicle and my shoulder and just wipe to the side of my left side as much as you can. So I'm not just brushing through the range. I'm trying to rotate a little bit further than what I have, or I feel a little bit of tension building up in the neck, and that's fine, as long as there's no discomfort and pain. So once I cannot rotate any further, I will try to use my eyes and the chin to try to point and look a little bit further. So this will give me a little bit more range. If I don't use my eyes, this will be my max. If I use my eyes, I got a little bit more range of motion, because the eyes will also influence the range of motion of the neck. Then I will continue by looking up and chin pointing to the circle, to the top. As I reach to the top, you should feel nice, good stretch around here as well. Okay, the eyes will try to look back, so it gives you a little bit more. As I rotate to my right, okay, as I rotate to my right, again, chin and eyes and nose is going to try to look to the right a little more. You will see that I have a little bit more range of motion once I just look through to the right side a little bit further. And then I continue down and I look down to the floor. And that's the starting position where I ended off. So usually I will just prescribe you to do more of like turning right and turning left, left side, then go to the right side. And we just do it about 4 or 5 times. And that should relieve some of the tension around this area. So just some things for you and tips for you that make it very effective or make it a little bit more optimized. You want to make sure that this area doesn't really move. You're just trying to move the joint here. And most of us, when we do that, we'll just move through the range. And that's not really disassociating the joint from the body. So when we think of cars, we always want to localize the joint only, and we don't want the rest to come in the picture. We're just mobilizing the joint, right? Is that good?
Yeah. How fast should we do this exercise? How slow?
As slow as you can.
When do we breathe? Do we hold our breath when we do it, or we start breathing normally? So
usually I would get, or most people would try to hold their breath when you do the whole exercise. I wouldn't advise that. Usually when you feel there's a little bit of restriction there, you might want to pause there and breathe in and just try to work through that tension or the build-up that you have there. And then you continue rotating. As you continue rotating, you always want to have the air in and out. When we're holding that, we're going to hold the position and we hold the breath in, right? We're going to create more tension already. So that's what we don't want. We want to try to keep the airflow going in and out as nicely as we can. And the speed of you doing it shouldn't be fast. When you do fast, you're going to bypass and you're going to miss all the missing parts that you should be exploring. You'll miss the range that you have. But when you go slow, you can actually take some time and reflect. Whether are you feeling this joint? Are you feeling that you're rotating? Are you feeling that you're bypassing? Are you feeling that, is there any pain? Are you feeling that there's actually any stretch? So the slower you do is always going to be the most optimum and the optimized when you're especially doing cars. When we're doing cars, so just think that we want to give feedback into the neck. If you do fast, you're going to bypass everything. Slow, you're going to feel and sense, and you can reflect it in yourself as well. Yeah.
So is this is part of your morning routine?
Yes, this is part of my morning routine. So on days that I feel that there's not much of a time, right, I would probably do a bit lesser reps. But on days that I have a little more time, I'll spend a little bit more about doing a little bit more repetitions, maybe 2 to 3 more times. Yeah. So depending on how much time you have, but try to make some time for it as well, because it's going to be very beneficial for your joints as well. Yeah.
Great, very good, very good. Yes. And what's the next one that you're going to share with us?
So the next one that we can use for morning routine, right, or when you wake up, right, when you feel stiff, it's going to be your shoulder. So areas that most people complain when they wake up is that, oh, my neck is sore, my shoulders is very sore. So this first drill that you did for the neck will try to reduce some of the neck tension that you might have when you wake up. And then the next one will be the shoulder. The shoulder you can actually mobilize through, we just do a simple rotation in the joint feeling, and that should create some space when you move already. Okay, so shoulder, we know it's a ball and socket, so it's just something like that. It's going in and out. We want to create as much rotational basis as we can in this joint here. We're not gonna explore other range, but we're just gonna do a simple one for for time purposes as well. So my hands will be at the side. You can just stick your hands out, okay? And you just want to make sure that this shoulder is lower than your palm. Yeah, the palm should be lower than your shoulder. So you should be somewhere here. So I'm going to shift myself here. Okay, so you can see the bicep is facing forward. Okay, your bicep is facing forward. This joint is here. You're going to have your other hand on top of your shoulder so that you have some more feedback. We want some internal self to try to feedback as well. So we don't want the shoulder to fly up and down as we do the exercise. We don't want it to fall forward and back when we do this exercise. We just want this joint to do its job by rotating inside that capsule or this joint. So you should see that my bicep will point to the floor, and that's probably my max. The bicep should start to point to the floor. And this time around, I just want to point my bicep towards the back of the wall. And I just want to rotate out and turn behind, and as much as I can, try to get the bicep to turn out. Make sure the hand is straight as well, so this will keep more leverage in the joint. If you're going to bend the hand, you're going to start using other muscles or other things that we don't really want when we're trying to mobilize this stuff here, the shoulder joint, okay? So again, I'm just going to rotate forward, and I should feel some movement in the joint, but my shoulder didn't move forward. And I'm just going to rotate it back. And you should feel some sourness here because things are working to try to get the joint to move in and out. And then you maybe can retest certain range of motion. You find that, hey, it's a little bit easier. So the more you do, the more you stimulate the joint, the more range you will get. And the more, and you do it on a daily basis, you will keep the range there as much as you can. So there's a term that most people relate back to is you use it or you lose it, right? So for example, if someone's in this position, they will lose some of the range because they are not able to explore the range that they should be doing on a daily basis. So we always want to try to give the joint a little bit more stimulation, a little more training when we start our day so that we don't have any mishaps happening throughout the day. Yeah.
So, you know, when somebody has never done these exercises before, what is their range going to be like? And especially for the profile of our guests today for the show, many of them might be age over 60. How much should they be turning to avoid any potential injuries? And, you know, what is the typical range that they can experience?
Doing cars, right, is actually a very, very safe exercise, okay, if they're doing it correctly. And the chances of injury is actually minimum, or in fact, very, very low. The things that you want to make sure is to make sure that you're not feeling sharp pain, not feeling any sort of nervy sensation or like a lightning shock or numbness sensation. That's where you stop. So as much as possible, you move in throughout the range. There's no sharp pain. You might feel soreness, and that's perfectly great. We want that because there's tissues around there working to try to create the joint to rotate. So the only thing you want to look out is whether there's sharp pain or is there any numbness sensation or any lightning feeling there. Then that's probably where you want to stop. But that all, by saying that, right, maybe when you go too far deep in, you're not used to it, and then you get that sensation. You stop before that discomfort or that feeling or sensation of the lightning feeling or the numbness that you feel. So you stop there. So that being said, yeah, you shouldn't stop doing it totally, but maybe just minimize the range first and look for a professional to actually diagnose. Maybe there's a closing angle pain that you have here inside the joint that's really compressed that you can't really rotate it out of, and you might have to see someone for that to sort of like help you to move that area out of the position so they can create more space again. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry so much when doing cars. It's actually a really safe exercise. To be frank, all my clients or the members in ASPIRE55 have done it, and no one complained of like whatever I just mentioned just now. It's actually a very safe exercise.
Yes, that's very good to know. And you know, after we've done these exercises, how do we know that our range of motion has improved over time? What are some improvements in the things I can do around the house if my movement has improved?
So some indicators is that when you reach overhead, hey, this time I reach is a little bit easier, or I can reach a little bit further without so much difficulty. That's a good gauge. Or basically when you are trying to do an activity, say for example, if I want to do a squat and I only can get to about maybe parallel and I can't go any further. But by say doing certain cars exercise, you mobilize the joint, hey, I went down about 2 more inches. So there's indicators you can use to know that actually things are working for you. Or in a sense, one more thing is that when you wake up, hey, this time around I wake up, less tension in the neck. So maybe that's actually creating more space in the joint and it's in a consistent progression, you feel less and less because there's more space in the joint. So imagine if something doesn't have space to move in, you're going to tax other areas to compensate to get that job done for you. So we always want to relate back to that as well. Yeah. And what was the other question?
I think this is a little bit like a patient form of exercise where you see small improvements on a daily basis. I mean, certainly we can all take some reference to that. We've got a question here on shoulder rotations. After you rotate forward, should you rotate the shoulder backwards again?
Yeah. So when I showed you just now, right, we always want to create both range. We don't want one. We want to be able to have the full expression of the joint. So forward and back. You can even start with back and then forward. It really depends on your intention of your goal or what you actually want to achieve in this exercise that you want. But basically, yes, we want to express as much multi-direction as possible, front to back. Even we can actually create up and down, but we won't talk about that today.
Yeah. So we'll save that for another time. And so if any of you out there, you do experience some pain when you are performing that range, perhaps it's also a good gauge that you should try and seek some attention for it, because that might indicate something else that's an issue. Sam, just before we go back to the screen, could you show us an example of a hip joint exercise? One of them participants is asking, what about hip joint rotations, CARs?
Okay,
what can they do?
Okay, I think I'll use in order to minimize movement, I'll use my knee joint instead, right? So we use a knee joint where I think they'll be quite interested to know with a lot of knee discomfort. So let me just shift myself away. Okay, so can everyone see this? Okay, I think it's a bit dark. Okay, so yeah, is that good?
Yes, I think we can see most of you.
Okay, I've got this on the light, so it's easier.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So if we have a knee joint, all right. So we know that the knee is in between two bones. Okay, typically it's three bones, but we just label it one bone here and one bone here. All right, and this is the joint here. So imagine every joint there's going to be some movement that can be appreciated and expressed as well. In relationship when we're talking about the knee, is between this bone here and this bone here. If you say the rotation is stuck into this basis here, we have a lot of torque or rotation happening at the joint here. So imagine this is doing this, and you may say you are stuck here, and you're going to feel a lot of tension building up here, like ACL, MCL, and stuff like that. Okay, so what we can do here is to create more range or just condition this area here by doing knee rotations. So what I mean by knee rotation, the knee actually can rotate. We can rotate it internally and externally as well, using certain muscles along the way to actually create that. So if you watch this, the knee joint is here. I want to create some mobility in this area here. I can actually think of this bone at the bottom. You touch your shin, this long bone here. This bone should be able to move without this knee moving. So in the sense that I can be able to turn out and the knees remain in the same position. This is a rotation that I want. Or either I can rotate it and turn it back in. And you should see that this bone is actually turning in. My knee is still staying still here. So again, turning out here without this moving. Turning in here without this moving as well. So this is a simple knee rotation you actually can try to do to mobilize this area to have a little bit more space. So the whole intention of CARs is to create space in the joint, and by articulating and moving in this manner, you're actually creating a little more space. But you will see a lot of us will be doing this when we turn the leg out, everything also turn out at the same time. When we turn in, everything also turn at the same time. And most of us will have a restriction in either one of the range. Usually we'll be good in, say, for example, turning out, but when I turn in, that's probably my limit here. Okay, so maybe this is the area that you need to work on a little more to rotate and create a little more space in the knee joint by rotating in here. We should have some dissociation. We shouldn't just see everything moving in and out at the same time. And that's not how we actually walk as humans. We actually have some relative motion throughout the joints. Okay, is that good?
Great, thank you very much, Sam. We've had another question here. Whenever I lie on the bed, I experience shoulder pain. It gets more and more painful. What are the likely reasons? I've been doing a 3-mile walk almost daily for the past 3 weeks.
Okay, so the question was again, the lying down and has some shoulder discomfort. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And okay, so there's many reasons why the shoulder is hurting. And it happens usually when you are immobile, in the sense that when you're lying down, you're not moving, the joint is in a fixed position here. There's not much expression of the joint. So we can create discomfort in the sense because we are not moving, we're not stimulating, we're not reducing the inflammation per se. So when you move your joint, for example, I'm assuming the person walks 3 miles a day, it mentioned that. When you move and you walk, do you feel the shoulder discomfort? I don't think so, correct? Is that correct? So in the sense that when we move, we create rotational axis and movement in the joints, so there'll be less discomfort. Like for example, when we wake up in the morning and we do the rotational basis exercise, or we just basically move our body a bit and stretch here, hey, I feel better, I feel lighter, I feel more relief, and the discomfort is lesser. So that being said, it's very hard to tell what is actually wrong with the shoulder. There could be some patho issues with the shoulder in the sense that you could have sustained an injury that you have not known, or it could be some issues along the shoulder that you should get it checked out as well. Because it's hard for me to tell you from this perspective. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're interested, you can write in more, and we'll try and do a follow-up question. Just before we move on, Sam, could you demonstrate to us the knee rotation while sitting on a chair? I think some of them have missed. They were not able to see too clearly about how you exactly do the knee rotation. Is it possible to show on a chair?
Yeah, I can try to do that. Just 1 second.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me see. Okay, let's try doing a chair. Just now I was doing on the floor though, so it's quite similar, but let me just take off the virtual background. Okay, is that okay?
Yes.
Let me just shift this down. Can you guys see now? I think it's a bit dark.
Yeah, it's a little bit dark. If you can turn more to your right, I think we can see.
Go to the other side.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better.
Great.
Okay, so it's the same concept again. So this time around, the focus will be my leg. I'm gonna shift up just a bit. Okay, so the same thing, but instead, since I'm sitting down here, I'll just put the heel on the floor instead. The heel will be on the floor to be my pivot. Because if you're gonna put it up here, I'll be rotating and then everything will just move at the same time. We need something to secure the lower portion of the leg. So the heel will be here. Again, same thing, I'll just position my hand here so that I can see whether my knee following or not following the shin bone here. So again, we want to create the rotation from the knee by moving the lower bone without moving the knee bone here, or the knee joint, sorry. So if you watch this again, all I'm trying to do is secure this leg here, this knee, and just rotate and try to think of my foot turn out while this bone moves out, and the knee joint still stays in a relatively straight position still. Then I just come back to the starting point. I rotate my feet to the opposite direction to create the rotation internally. I don't have much range here as well, but you should see there's a slight rotation actually happening using this bone as the guidance here, and the knee is actually staying still. So one more time to the right, I'll turn to the right side. This is called my turning out leg, my external rotation. My knee joint still stays here. I turn in, is my internal rotation here. So for myself, I should work more on turning in. Turning out for me is actually quite good. So you will find that, make sure that when you do this drill, that the knee is not following you out as well, and it's not following you in as well. And high chance that most of us, when you do this the first time, you find it, wow, so hard to actually dissociate from here and here. So you take some time, but progressively when you do this, don't just think of doing the exercise, think of what you should feel when you're doing this exercise. Should you feel these feet turning out? Should you feel some muscles along the line here working? Should you feel anything behind the thigh? So that's quite important to note. You will feel that you should feel a little bit tired here when you turn out. You should feel a little bit tired when you're turning in. You should feel a little bit in the inside of the thigh as well here. So it's two opposite areas that you want to look at and feel as well. Not just by completing the exercise, but more so on how you're feeling when you're doing the exercise. So your internal self as well. Yep.
Great, thank you. I think that was great insights to understanding more about our body and our movement and how you feel and how your joints move. just remember that you have to be patient. These are really small adjustments over time that you can try to improve with doing the regular CARs. And also Sam will be sharing some of these in his live exercise programs that he does with ASPIRE55. And also I'm sure we'll have other special course series that Sam leads, in which we do a special focus session, especially on CARs. So for those of you who are interested, you can stay tuned and we'll keep you informed. You can write in. We've got more questions coming. Is plantar fasciitis part of aging? How do we avoid plantar fasciitis? I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. I'm not an expert field in plantar fasciitis, but basically it means like sort of like a overloading of the tissues on the sole of the foot. So that's the muscle that the plantar fasciitis is actually is the muscle at the sole of the foot. And aging, I wouldn't classify it as aging at all. It's more of just poor loading over an extended duration of time, in the sense that it could be due to footwear issues, like too much supportive footwear issues is actually going to attribute to plantar fasciitis actually. Improper loading of the foot, in the sense that if we walk, or just now when I show you how the knee moves, or the knee relationship with the two bones, if the feet is just going to stay still all the time and you just piak on the floor all the time, you're going to create some overloading in the tissues there. We need to be able to like sort of like the feet to arch up and flatten, arch and flatten, arch and flatten as we go through the gait cycle as we walk. So usually plantar fasciitis is more towards a loading mechanical issue rather than an aging kind of thing. And that can actually be resolved, not by using orthotics, to be frank, but more of learning how to recruit the muscles of the feet, how you actually going to move the feet as you walk, and change the shape of the feet as you move as well. So I think that's the biggest part of plantar fasciitis. And nowadays, the very commonly, they will just ask you to get a shoe that has very supportive sole, or orthotics that actually going to fix it. But actually, down the road, is going to create more problems, in fact.
Yeah. I think that's very good insight. Sometimes we want to look for a quick fix and the easiest solution out there. Definitely doing these CARs, they sound like a lot more commitment in time to try and improve each joint and muscle group. But I'm sure if we are patient enough and we can go through the exercises well, we'll all see some improvements in the way we're doing it. I think that's great. Well, Sam, we have 10 minutes left. So I wanted to be able to ask you to share more about breathing exercises.
Okay. What about breathing exercises?
Yes. And first of all, just to bring it back a little bit, you said that it's really important at the beginning that we know how to breathe. And breathing is very important for us. What can you share with us about breathing, and why we need to learn about it?
Okay. So because of technology, because of the different stresses that we are always more into, in the sense that we are always we have physical stress, we have emotional stress, we have all sorts of stress nowadays. It's going to put us in a state of like a very panicky state, or in a state of flight and fight mode. If you guys understand the flight and fight mode, when we're going to try to run everywhere, we're going to tense ourselves every time. We're just going to do everything very fast, and that's going to drive our sympathetic tone, or in the sense that flight and fight mode, we're always going to be very tense. By doing breathing, and we do it breathing correctly, we actually can reverse the whole process of the stresses that we are going to take in. We can try to calm the whole system down so that we can rest and digest, in the sense that we can actually turn off, we can relax, we can digest our food. There'll be many episodes where people in work, they are rushing, there's so much stress doing work. When they eat their food, they feel that they can't really digest anything very well. They might even see that they start to, for example, put on weight, feel tired, feel like they're going to break down, they can't get a good night's sleep. So that's also going to be a relationship between poor breathing during the flight and fight mode, because during flight and fight mode, we need to be able to breathe fast and run away. If not, we sort of like get eaten up by the tiger or animal that's behind us. But when we put into today's context, because of technology and stuff like that, right? We are actually having flight and fight mode, although there's no threat behind us, if you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. So now there's a threat that is not perceived as a threat, in the sense that there's no threat, but we perceive there's a threat there. And the body is always heightened up in that state. we're going to breathe very shallow, and we're not able to express full range of motion of the diaphragm or the muscles that are in charge of breathing. We're not going to express full range of motion. So like what we mentioned, the joint has full range of motion, or the muscle should have full range of motion when I contract my bicep and flex. The diaphragm inside here should be able to have full range of motion going up and down as well. So that's what we don't have. And breathing through a very specific drills that you can use, we can actually retrain the diaphragm, the muscle, how to relax and contract again. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing that we should try to work towards to more. And that's what we have been doing the past few workshops with ASPIRE as well.
Yeah. Can you show us just one example of how we can breathe better? Is there one particular breathing exercise that you'd like to teach us today?
So the whole idea is that when we breathe, I would like to always cue people to not to realize what's happening in your chest or in your tummy, but just worry about how well are you breathing in through your nose and how well are you exhaling from the mouth. So when we breathe in from the nose, right, we are not going to try to think that I need to suck in the air or pull the air. And when you do that, you change the whole mechanics of quiet, relaxing breathing. So when we breathe in, we just think of your nostrils are two pipes. You unlock both pipes and you want to let the air flow into your body and just let everything do its job. So by thinking of, so the two differences that if I think of pulling the air in very consciously, I'm going to be feeling a lot of strain in my neck. You can see my neck muscle. It's going to pull that, and then tensions coming out from the neck when by doing that. And that's what is going to happen when someone's in the flight and fight mode state and try to, and they don't get a very good exhale. And then the second part is when we exhale. Most people think that when they exhale, that's all the air out. But little that they don't know is that they could actually exhale way longer. In a sense, when we exhale, based on the body position that we won't go into today, we can actually tell you whether are you very inflated with air or you really deflated with air. So most people are more inflated because they have their sort of their body facing up, they are very extended, and they're very sort of like the whole chest is up. So we want to make sure that when we exhale, everything can come down and relax, and then the diaphragm can lengthen up, and then we get the full ability of the muscle to contract and to relax when we're actually doing the breathing drills. So simple ways that when we breathe in, we always want to think that how well are we breathing through the nose? Are we actually pulling or actually just letting the air flow in quietly, and you shouldn't hear any sound? And when you exhale, you're just trying to blow all the air out and feel that you actually can come down. If you feel that when you blow the air and you still hear, that's not you exhaling all the air out, not effectively and not the way that we should be doing to try to do this drill. So a simple way is just simply by doing these two things that to take in mind. I think that should give you a lot of benefit from that.
Yes, definitely. I think that's some great, really good breathing tips that we can all take away from today. I mean, we've learned so much today. I mean, from extending our range of motions, the exercises for your neck, your shoulder, and your knee joints, all the way to some new breathing techniques. I think everybody here would agree that we've benefited from today's session. So we really enjoyed today. And if you have any other questions, participants who are in the webinar today, feel free to drop your Clubhouse managers a message, and we will try our best if we can answer a few more questions offline. We've come close to the end of our session today with 2 minutes left. We would like to thank Sam today for joining us in the studio to share all about what the mobility exercises and balance exercises we can do through CARS. I think it was very, very insightful. Thank you very much, Sam. In this last 1 minute, would you like to share with us your vision for aging in future and any wish that you have for all Singaporeans out there who are trying to get into a fitness regime?
The first thing is you have to ask the question to yourself first. I mean, to everyone, is that what are they trying to achieve? If they are just trying to achieve to just do certain exercises just for the sake of doing the exercise, I think that wouldn't really last very long. So the whole idea is that getting to understand what they actually want to achieve, why they want to achieve this, and what's the intention behind it will drive a longer motivation and commitment to doing this particular, say for example, this exercise or this regime they're trying to do it. So I think it's more about reflecting from themselves about what they're actually trying to do. And also, we as trainers, or we are particularly interested in this field, is that we need to try to bring the message to them and show them that the importance of them trying to maintain a good life, healthy lifestyle, or good exercise regime to prevent XXX or to prevent something from happening and stuff like that. So I think that it plays with both parts, the willingness to change from themselves, internal self, and also from us externally, that how can we actually influence this population of people as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. And we always hope that any change that you have in your lifestyle, it comes from within. That's the only way that you can have a consistency to keep up that healthy lifestyle and activities. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. Have a great afternoon. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you.